So in the last video I showed you how to set up Claude.md rules and settings, the foundation. But there's the thing, those are instructions Claude reads passively. You write them once, Claude follows them every time. Skills and agents are slightly different though. Skills are workflows that Claude can invoke on its own, so without you typing any / command. When you ask matches the skill, the Claude will invoke the skill to fullify your task. And agents are like spinning up a specialist with their own isolated context. So a dedicated code reviewer or security auditor or a deployment helper, they can have their own context, and each one has his own tools, his own rules, and his own focus. And I've been using skills from Pocock, things like writing PRDs, turning PRDs into GitHub issues, even a grill me skill, which is wonderful. And that skill interviews me about an idea to build shared understanding between me and LLM. And I want to show you how this whole system works and how you can build your own. Hi there, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Daniel Noworyta. I'm a senior programmer, and on this channel I show strategies and tools useful for learning programming and developing your career in the IT industry. Today, we are continuing our deep dive into the .claude folder. This is part 2 from this series, so if you haven't seen part 1, go watch that first. I think the link will be somewhere here. We covered the Claude.md files, we covered their rules, we covered their settings, local and shared ones, and today we are covering skills and agents. So the more advanced features that take Claude Code from a helpful tool level to, I would say, like something that genuinely can work as a team member within your project or within your organization. So let's dive in. So before we get into the details, there's one important thing I need to tell you. If you've been reading about Claude Code online, you might have seen references to a commands folder, like .claude/commands. People talk about custom /commands, yes? Here's the thing though, as of Claude Code version 2.1.3, commands have been merged into skills. Yes, there are no one unified system. So your old .claude/commands files still will work, nothing will broke, but going forward, skills are the recommended approach. And honestly, I was thinking about this, and it makes totally sense, I think, because commands were just single markdown files. Skills are more or less the same thing, but with much more power. They can bundle supporting files, they can have front matter that controls when and how they are triggered, and Claude can discover and use them automatically. So in this video, when I say skills, I'm talking about both the old commands system and the new unified system. If you have existing commands, they will still keep working, but for anything new, build is as a skill, please. So what is a skill? Let me break it down simply. A skill is a set of instructions packaged as a folder with a skill.md file that Claude can either invoke when you ask it to, or invoke automatically when the task matches the skill's description. Let me say that again because it is really important. Skills can trigger automatically, so you don't always have to type a / command. If you describe the skill well enough, Claude will recognize when the task matches and invoke it on its own. So as you can see here, each skill lives in its own subdirectories. Yes, so we have Claude./skills, we have code review skill, we have deploy skill. Each skill has its own subdirectory with skill.md file and some additional files. And inside that folder, you have a skill.md. So this is like broad description. Before that was also slash commands, they were described like this. This file is with instructions, and you have also here any supporting files which would be needed for this skill to work properly within your system. Yeah, so you have like templates, you can have like guidelines, you can have like checklists, whatever is needed for skill to work properly, you can put it there. So let me now show how SKILL.md looks like. So let me walk you through this. The front matter, the part between the dashes at the top, tells Claude when to use this skill and what those tools it's allowed to use. Yes, so the name becomes the slash command. So this one in our case would be like code review, and description helps Claude decide when to load it automatically. In our case, like review code for quality issues, used when reviewing PRs, checking for bugs or validating implementation before merging. So below the front matter part, we have actual instruction for Claude to follow when the skill is invoked. And see, this is important part here, that add detailed guide.md reference, that pulls in a supporting file that lives right next to the skill.md. And this is the key difference from the old command system, because commands were just single files and skills are complete packages. So you can bundle reference materials, templates, checklists, anything the skill needs to do its job well. Let's talk about how the skills are triggered. So there are two ways a skill gets triggered. First one is you type the slash command like slash code review and you are in control. You decide when to use it. Second way is Claude reads the description and recognizes that the current task matches. So if you say, hey Claude, review this PR for issues before I merge, and Claude sees a skill with a description about reviewing PRs, it will invoke it automatically. So you don't even have to know the skill exists. And I think this is really powerful for working within Teams environment. So you can create a skill for your development process, your PR review checklist, your testing standards, and every team member gets those workflows automatically just by working in the code base. Yes. Let me share some real examples. I've been using skills from Pocock and they are genuinely really useful. And one of them is a PRD skill, product requirements document, where you can describe what you want to build and the skill walks you through a structured process to produce a proper PRD. It asks the right questions, it formats the output consistently, and it covers things you might forget. So you can see we have like, we write our PRD skill, we have description, whatever it should be invoked. So this skill should be invoked when user wants to create PRD. You might skip steps if you don't consider them necessary. And we have like here steps to ask questions, explore the repository, interview the user, and sketch the major modules and stuff like this. Yes. Another one which I really use, it's like turning PRD into GitHub issues. So once you have your requirements documented, one command breaks them down into actionable tickets. So, and there is one more skill which is really useful, but first let me describe this one. So PRD to issues. This is breaking huge PRD into independently grabbable GitHub issues, so the models can work on them separately. And you can see like we have steps to locate PRD, explore the code base, draft vertical slices. It's a really useful technique with working with LLMs and like setting up your repository in correct way. And also quiz the user to get the common understanding. And at the end, the model will create the GitHub issues on which we can work later on with our loops or just single with human in the loop method. Yes. So another one which is really, really useful is grill me. I think this is one of the best findings by Matt. And this is one of the best things which I learned from him. So let me show you this skill. This is a grill me skill, and as you can see here, skill is called grill me. It's about interviewing the user and getting the common understanding between the user and the model that the user will build whatever we want, and the model is like in common understanding what the user wants from model to be built. Yes, this grill me skill is really brilliant because it's basically an interview skill. Claude asks you challenging questions about your idea. It helps you find edge cases, assumptions, trade-offs, and it's building a common understanding between you and the AI before you start coding. So instead of Claude just taking your instructions at face value, it pushes back and asks, what about this case, or have you considered that? And I think this is really valuable to have this conversation first with model before you starting applying anything. So, and I think this is the kind of thing that makes me think about skills as more than shortcuts, because they like having the team members with specific expertise then you can invoke whenever you need them. I can imagine I can also prepare a skill for interviewing me in like user-centric direction. So I already have my own skill to interview me, like when I'm implementing some feature, I would like to have conversation with model which know background about my users of my application, what they are like, what they don't like. And in this case, we can also implement features in better way. Now let me show you how to create your first skill. Let's say you want a skill that helps you write commit messages following your team's convention. So in this case, you'll go into your project root, you'll have your .claude folder, and you have to create like new folder here with skills, and then within the skills folder, commit message. And here in commit message skill, we need like skill.md file, which will have our proper instructions for model to how to do peer like committing messages within our project. And in this case, I will just copy paste these values here, and you see you have a name commit message, you have description, generate a conventional commit message, use when the user asks to commit changes, write a commit message or prepare a commit. So we have also allowed tools that we are allowing to model to use when he is using this skill. So we are allowing him using bash tools and read files. And here is the instruction. So look at the stage changes using git diff cached. Write a commit message following conventional commit. So you can imagine you can also set it as a team skill and keep like commit messages constantly within your team environment. Yeah, even if like 6, 7, 8 people working within the same project, you will be able to keep commit messages in one constant way. Even if new developers are coming into the team, you will not have to familiarize them with rules, just share the skill and they will use the same skill when they will create commit messages. So at the end, if changes span multiple concerns, so just splitting into separate commits. That's it. Now when you say like commit those changes or write me a commit message, Claude sees the description, matches and invokes the skill automatically in your case. So it reads the diff, it follows your convention and gives you a proper commit message at the end. And just like with everything else in the .claude system, project skills in .claude/skills are committed and shared within your team. And this is what I propose you. For skills you want everywhere regardless of projects, just put them in your home directory /.claude/skills, and those will be your personal skills available in every repository you work in. So for example, I have my personal skill for daily stand-up, or I have my personal skill to check my commits regarding of the most common comments which I get on PR reviews, that I'm not doing the same mistakes again and again. Now let's talk about agents. This is where things get really interesting, I would say. When a task is complex enough to benefit from a dedicated specialist, you can define a sub-agent persona in .claude/agents folder. And here's the key inside. Each agent runs in its own isolated context window. So what does that mean for you? It means the agent does its work, compresses the findings and reports it back. So your main session doesn't get cluttered with thousands of tokens of intermediate exploration. I'm always trying to think about it like this. You are working on a feature, You want a true code review before you push your code. So instead of your main Claude session spending like 5k tokens reading every file, analyzing patterns, checking for edge cases, etc., which would eat into your context window and make Claude forget like earlier parts of your conversation, you spin up an agent like code reviewer agent, and it does all that work in its own isolated context. Yes. Then after work is finished, it comes back with a compressed summary of its findings. So your main session stays clean and you have only new findings from the working of the agent itself, from the separate context itself. So this is how your code reviewer agent could look like. Let me point here a few things. The tools field here at the top restricts what the agent can do. So a code reviewer only needs read, grab and glob, I would say. It has no business writing files or running bash commands. And that restriction is intentional and important, I would say, especially for security sensitive agents. So you can always think about your agents, like what they really need to do their job, and just allow them to use those tools. Also, the model field here, which you can see in which I set to Sonnet, this is a smart because you can use a cheaper, faster model for focused tasks. And in my experience, like Haiku handles read-only exploration really well. So save Sonnet and Opus for the work that actually needs to heavy reasoning. This saves your tokens and this saves your money. And I think in future, when the companies will not subsidize those tokens so much as they are doing right now, we will need to take care more on token consumptions on this, how we are working with those models. And description, as in all markdown files, this is the well-known pattern. This is like use when, just like skills. Yeah, so agent can be invoked automatically when Claude recognizes the task matches, or you can call them. So now you might be asking, what's the difference, Daniel? When do I use a skill and when do I use an agent? Here's how I think about it. Skills are instructions that run in your current session. So they share your context window. They are great for workflows that benefit from seeing the full conversation, I would say, like writing a commit message based on what you've been working on currently. In other side, agents are for me like a specialist that run in isolation, complete isolation, like separate person. So they get their own context window. They are great for tasks that need deep exploration without polluting my main session, and like reviewing an entire PR or doing a security audit or scanning a code base for like patterns which are useful. So the rule of thumb for me is if the task is read heavy, exploration heavy, and doesn't need to know about your like current conversation, make it an agent. If the task needs to see what you've been doing and respond in context, I will go for a skill. And just like skills, personal agents go in your home directories, .claude agents, and are available across all of your projects. So if you have a code reviewer agent, you can use it everywhere. You can put it in your global folder once. Yes. So here we are. There is a full picture from part 1 to part 2. You have your project, you have your global team instructions in Claude.md, you have your local personal overrides in Claude.local.md, which will be not added to the GitHub. You have your .claude/settings and local settings, similar to the instructions. You can have your local settings, which will be not added to the repository. And you have rules, skills, and agents, which are like project related. You can have like CLAUDE.md in rules, testing. You can have skills like code review, commit message for given project, and also agents like code reviewer and security auditor for given project. And there is also like home.claude folder where you have your global instructions, your personal skills, your personal agents, and your session history, which is really useful if you wanna create like better Claude.md global instructions. You can take a look on session history, you can take a look on the memory of the Claude and create better global instruction for yourself for future. And now if we talk about my recommend approach, if you watched part 1 and already have your Claude.md and settings in place, here's what I would do next. Start by creating 1 or 2 skills for the workflows you do most often in your project. So like code review or creating proper commit messages are good starting points in my opinion. Something you do every day, and try to automate it as a skill. After some time, as you get comfortable, try building an agent for something read heavy, I would say. So a code reviewer or a security auditor is a natural fit in every project, I would say. So see how the isolated context window keeps your main session clean and where it could be beneficial for your workflow. And then explore the community, I would say. Pocock skills are a great starting point, and there are people who are sharing skills on GitHub. Try them, learn from them, then try to build your own. I also spend a lot of time on research or reading other people's skills and trying them out. So the thing that I keep coming back to, the .claude folder is not just a configuration. In my opinion, it's a protocol for telling Claude who you are, what your project does, and what rules it should follow. So the more clearly you define that, the less time you spend correcting Claude and the more time it spends doing really useful work for yourself. And you can also see those benefits, incremental speed of implementing new features along the way. But first you have to spend time to set up it properly. So those 2 videos, I hope they were really helpful for you. And Claude.md is your foundation. Rules are scaling this foundation, settings protects you, and skills are automating your workflows, and agents give you like specialists on demand, I would say. So as you can see, none of this is complicated. It's just markdown files in the right places. So, but the difference between a properly configured .claude folder and an empty one, in my opinion, that's the difference between Claude being a helpful tool and Claude being a productive team member, like really team member, which is doing like meaningful job every day. So here's what I want you to do. Pick one workflow you do repeatedly, like code reviews, commit messages, PR descriptions, whatever it can be. Build it as a skill this weekend. Just one skill. Create a folder, write the SKILL.md, test it in a few times and see how it changes your workflow. And if you want inspiration, search for Claude Code skills on GitHub. There are some really creative ones out there. Matt's Pocock's Total TypeScript skills are a really great place to start, and I can recommend you this. I will put links also in description below. If you like this video, you will probably also like this playlist when I've put together for you. It includes the most popular episodes where I discuss about AI tools for developers and practical strategies for working with AI in your daily coding. What I would say, thanks for watching. I hope you've got some value from this video and from video number 1 from this series. And I wish you a nice day and see you in the next one. Bye bye.